Welcome to Let's Blame the Planets, a monthly astrology podcast where we use what's happening in the sky as a starting point for conversation, reflection, and storytelling. This isn't about predictions or having all the answers. It's about exploring astrology as it shows up in real life and helping you understand astrology for what it really is. My name is Sandra Jungen. I'm a natal astrologer, and together with my co-host Fery, our honorary astrologer, we'll dive deep each month into a topic that feels relevant for the world, or sometimes just for us. We both have a strong Sagittarius streak, so expect curiosity, big questions, and the occasional philosophical detour. And we're on. Okay, so this is a big month. All the astrologers have been talking about this for a long time. It's the biggest month of the year in 2026, and it's going to hold a lot of energies that continue to be with us for a long time. It's kind of just the first wave, I would say, of this year. This is the first wave of these new energies, and I find before we get into the key dates, we're going to talk about the key dates of the month, and obviously the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is the big, event. We'll talk about the solar eclipse in Aquarius as well, and the Chinese New Year, the moving into the fire horse. And then at the end, we're going to talk about some help from planets, because this is a turbulent month. It is a nebulous month. It's a confusing month. It's a month where things change and shift. And it's interesting even preparing for this podcast, for this session, because I was like, I can't feel into it because it's such new energies, and I think that's the whole point, isn't it? Because it's like, but as I started thinking about this, I was like, it's we've never experienced this before, especially the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0° Aries. And I think that's why it's hard to kind of predict in some ways. And you'll talk about this in a minute because you're in China at the moment.
Yes, I think that was interesting as well, because I feel like last episode we're talking about, okay, I'm gonna share the experiences, how that actually affecting me, especially the Pluto conjunct my natal Saturn and also squaring my natal Venus, right? So and also was in it is in 8th house and 2nd house. This kind of like the dynamic. If you're not knowing astrology, the 2nd house is something related with your money, with your self-esteem. And also my 2nd house is in Leo, right? So Leo for me is like really representing the inner child. And that really the expression, because Leo wants to be the center of the stage, want to express themselves freely in a lot of way. But Pluto in Saturn, I think I was really feeling this. Before I was thinking about different scenario. When I really get here and I find out the 8th house is house of trauma, is house of deep psychological side of things, right? And I find that the Pluto conjunct my natal Saturn is talking about, because Pluto is outer planet. It's a generational planet. I can feel that deep rooted patriarchy culture in Chinese culture is really rooted there, and that's presenting to me as a family dynamic. Like, for example, I'll just say one thing. So I wasn't we kind of have a little bit gathering in my grandma's house, right? And it's in a village, right? So they're still living in a really old fashioned way, right? So yes, everything is improved. Like, for example, when I was young, the road to that village is totally not good. So it's really hard to get there, right? So you're taking so many transportations to get there. But now the basic infrastructure, the basic road and all the thing is done, is improved. You can get there really quickly and easily, and everybody's house is much better than before. But the way they live is still the same. Nothing has changed. And I was sitting around the table, and I was watching how, for example, my grandma has 5 sons and 2 daughters, right? So she just expecting the son just need to stay there, do nothing, and the daughter has to cook, has to clean. And it's like unspoken rules, right? And I was like, whoa, this is just so not right. even though my dad, and he will just kind of like starting to helping, for example, preparing for cooking, even though he knew he's not good at it, but he will try his best to do something for it, right? But still, that like the expectation and the, you know, like I just really feel like a really strong patriarchy, like society still really strong in that way, and it's just reflecting in a family dynamic. And also when I talking about, for example, if I don't want to get married, if I because like I am a black sheep in their eyes, because all the daughters or like sons and or like stay close by, and because that's how in Chinese sort of like a traditional thought, they give birth for children, and it's not because I want you to flourish, I want you to live your own life, because I want you to keep close so you can take care of me when I was old, when I getting old, right? So it's really strong attachment in that way. And also you will feel as a children feel obligated if you are, for example, like living really far away, and then it's kind of like you're the bad person because you leave your parents behind. And chasing your dream after your dreams is something, especially for women. And I can see when I spoke my truth, and they went silent, even though they didn't say, oh, I don't agree, but you can see they feel like, oh, this is like not good as a woman, this is not good as a daughter, you know. And I'm also basically saying like I'm not leaving my parents behind, it just chasing my dream, right? So, and also in a way, they actually now learn how to be independent on their own, because I definitely find the difference between the Western parents, like especially their generation, like they're much more independent, and they're like know how to deal with life in a lot of way. But Chinese parents, they're much more rely on the daughter. For example, if they can, for example, they sometimes they don't even know how to use the phone, how to book a ticket, and they just totally rely on the young generations. So what I see in here is like the young generation is really hard and stressful, because they have to take care of the little kids, and also they have to like taking care of the older kids. And in their generation, it doesn't have any time or like the concept to process any kind of like emotions, but they are the one going through most trauma in their life, right? So it's basically, I feel like I was confronting the generational trauma from their generation, and it become like I have to still standing like protecting my inner child, but also understanding where they're coming from. So there's like much sort of like inner battle within me, and I literally feel, and also like the collective, like I said, shared with you before, like as soon as I get here and all the spiritual connection, I feel like I was totally blocked. I can feel it was like a massive clock, like in the nation in a way, you know, because no one really care about like spirituality here, because everybody's just surviving, right? And also I feel like the economic recession is not just in here, I think it's just everywhere, because what has been changing, right? And you can feel it in everybody's like the thought, you know, like really burn out and really not kind of like leaving. So there's like spirituality for them, it's a luxury, right? So no one really care about it, no one really talking about it. But the one thing I noticed was really interesting was, because the young generation like carries so much burden and stress and anxiety in their daily life, and now there's a trend, they go back to the ancient Chinese tradition, for example, like the Chinese medicine and the old way of, for example, the temple culture, that kind of thing, now starting to coming back. So a lot young generation starting to not rely on, like using the traditional Chinese way to actually to reducing the anxiety and stress, which is a good thing, because normally, like I think before I left, I feel like it's more westernized. They worship Western thing, right? But now they're starting to try to go back to the root, go back to the really like helping you to how to taking care of your body, and how to actually utilizing that kind of like Eastern philosophy and to apply in your daily life, which is a good thing in a lot of way. But yeah, I just feel like it's really interesting to going through all of this. But another thing I want to mention as well is like also in the second and eighth house is really, I was also dealing with some debts before, like for example dealing with my money situation, like kind of like the Kiwi saver kind of thing, and that was really kind of quick. I think that's kind of like add on in that topic as well, things.
Yeah.
And also that was also quite, I was quite impressed as well. So everything dealing with here is really convenient. And so I basically go to the online, get done quickly. And yeah, so there's like a lot of like contradicting experiences. At one hand, you feel like really convenient, everything is improved, and everyone's life, like quality of life from material side of things, you can feel like it's improved. But the scarcity mindset and you know, like it's just still there. They're still living the old way, and no one really want change. And there's we just get used to it. It's fine. It's all right. They don't care about like other things.
Yeah. That's super interesting. Like I find it so fascinating that you're in the Eastern kind of world at the moment, and we're talking about this because, and like obviously what you talked about is personal to your chart, which is you know, everyone experiences these transits differently, and Fery has a Pluto transit at the moment, which is to her chart personally. So that just kind of shows you as well, to our listeners, that even though what we're talking about in this podcast today, like it might manifest quite differently to you on a personal level, but collectively, what we're talking about today, we're going to feel it and see it in the outside world. Yeah. So I think that's a really good example of, like, you know, even though what we're talking about in this February podcast is more about Aries and Neptune and Saturn, there are other planets at the moment triggering other people, you know, your charts, like Pluto's triggering Fery's chart, you know, Uranus might be triggering your chart in a different way to the listeners. So these updates are for a collective level, and personally we can feel these in our personal lives quite differently. But I find what you just said as well before, one of my experiences leading up to this and trying to feel into the energy, what you said, like when you went home and you just felt this restriction of like spiritual, like you couldn't tap back into that spiritual world. And I was at a party last night, and the themes was hats. This is such a random story, but last night, so we had to wear these hats, and I hate wearing hats. I just find it really restrictive. I feel like the energy can't flow. I feel like I can't think. I hate wearing hats. And I was in this party, and I was just like sitting there going, I don't know how to be. I don't know how, like, I'm quite comfortable in my own body, and you know, but there was a lot of different people there that I didn't know, with a lot of different opinions, some very different to mine, and I just kind of felt this real restriction. And it's funny when you were talking about that too, like, yes, you've gone home and felt this restriction, but on some level I feel it too, even though it was like literally by a hat, and it conjured this image for me, what this month kind of feels like, and what this, I think the Neptune and Aries really signifies, is like you and the Saturn together, and we'll come to that in a moment, is kind of walking down this path. You don't know where you're going, and you're in a straitjacket. Like you can't feel your way, but you're being forced forward because it's that Aries energy, you know? So that is quite interesting. There is this kind of this like restriction, but we're forced to move forward, you know? The other thing you said that I found interesting was, you know, like how things haven't changed. There's this contradiction of, so things have changed, sorry. You know, there's more convenience. I guess that's that kind of earth energy, the, you know, more materialistic convenience arising, but some things haven't changed, you know? And I think this is what this new energy is pushing us towards as well. It's like, okay, we've had all this materialistic over the last 200 years of like the Industrial Revolution, and, you know, in the East and the West, of more money and material conveniences and infrastructure, and, you know, but now this kind of spirituality, what is that? What are we stepping into now? Because I think the Neptune in Aries really speaks of that new spiritual path. So I think that's a good introduction. What do you think? Should we go on to the key dates?
Yeah, shall we do that? Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so key dates I've got here, February 6th and 7th, which are we're already past, but Mercury has just entered into Pisces. We're recording this on February 8th. It's going to be in Pisces for 10 weeks, including a retrograde. We're going to come back to that at the end of the podcast. We've got Venus entering into Pisces in the next couple of days on the 10th or 11th, depending on where you are in the world. And I feel like these Pisces planets are going to be supportive and also hindering, but we'll come to that at the end of the podcast as to why. February 13th, 14th is the big one where not the big one, one of the big ones, Saturn enters into Aries. And we got a preview of this in May and September 2025. It's already been in Aries for a little bit last year, and it's there until 2028. February 17th, we've got the new moon annual solar eclipse in Aquarius. That's big. That's big. We're going to talk about that. And then February 18th, 19th, Sun enters into Pisces. And then just after that, on the February 20th, 21st, we have this big Saturn conjunct Neptune. And this is the biggest astrological moment of the year. And then at the end of the month, we have Mercury retrograding in Pisces on the February 26th, 27th. And that will be retrograde till March 20th. But yeah, Mercury spends a lot of time in Pisces. So let's get into Saturn Aries. A lot of time in Pisces, which is a weird, again, contradicting energy to all the Aries energy, isn't it? It adds to the confusion of the month. But I think let's talk about Saturn and Aries, and I've already talked about this in terms of I'm finding Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries really hard to pinpoint, like the energies, but it's becoming a little bit clearer as I talk through it. But that Saturn, that restriction, obviously Saturn is in it's not comfortable in Aries. Saturn is in fall in Aries because Saturn is about slow pace. It wants to build slowly. It wants to limit. It wants to make sure you learn the lessons. Whereas Aries is the opposite. Aries is like charge ahead. We're going. We're all for it. We're just going ahead. So Saturn in Aries feels quite restrictive. And then Neptune in Aries, like I said, Neptune is the planet of spirituality. It's the planet of confusion, illusion, delusion, but also imagination and dreams. And so again, it's kind of like asking us to really push forward with our dreams but then also like Saturn's kind of putting a brake on it. It's an interesting.
It is really interesting combination as well, because I feel like if I really I think what we're talking about in our 2026 the whole year episode as well, and I feel like the Saturn in Aries, and it's like the leader, they can making assertive decisions, but also with the moral. We have the boundaries, we have the discipline. I think the Canadian prime ministers, and he is actually really embodying that energy. It's like I can say no, and with that, really, I'm not afraid to picking a fight in that way. But I will do it in a very slow strategy in that way. You know what I mean? So I think that's how I see that energy. Yes, Saturn in Aries maybe in general, is, like you said, is in fall. It's not comfortable because Aries want to go, right? And Saturn's like, no, slow down. That's just strategizing, and that's just really see whether it's making happen. But when you're really embodying that in a really good way, is actually really good leader in a lot of way, because they're not afraid saying no. They're not afraid of pushing forward, but still with that patience, with that strategy, right? So that's why I feel when you see this, I feel like you can already see the ripple effect with the speech from the Canadian, what's his name, Mark
Carney.
Yeah. I feel like you can already see the effect from that speech. A lot of nations starting to following him, really starting to rebuild their sovereignty, right? Because also I feel like the Saturn is also the builder for me. It's really building the structures, right? And Aries building the sovereignty, right? So I think that's the energy as well. A lot of people knowing that now I need to protect ourselves, our country, our people, right? Not being bullied. So basically it's a really strong energy of standing up for that as well. So I think that's how I see that playing out in a really global level in that way, the Saturn in Aries. And also I feel like the Aries is like more adding on like the really different component to it, right? So like you said, Neptune can be a very delusional, like really confusing like energy. So I feel like because there's a lot of like information coming out, I think that's something I want to talk about later on as well, because the Mercury still in Pisces conjunct North Node later on as well. So I think that's actually a flooding of information. So people starting to kind of oh my god, there's so many information at the same time. For example, when you're looking at Instagram, some people are talking about really all this kind of like what's that called? The fire being released in America. I don't know how to read his name.
The Epstein files, yeah.
Yes, that's really like heated topic, right? No one actually talking about here, but that's kind of like a lot, like flooding of information. Like, and also I think it's kind of like and also what my point was like when you can see a lot of discussion around that. Also, if you see a lot of people, for example, still sharing, oh, my life is love and light, and also my life is really good in a lot of ways. So there's like a lot of like a mixture of information. You just feel like you're living in a world and everything exists and happening at the same time, and it's just so overwhelmed. You know what I mean? At one time, you see so much darkness in this way, but some people are just like, oh, I don't care. It's nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
you know
I think that's that Neptune influence as well, that kind of like confusion. Interesting what you said about Saturn and Aries. I think Mark Carney is a really good example, personally, of that archetype. I also feel like Saturn and Aries can also be kind of a coming down on rebellion, you know, like so it can be that opposite as well of like leaders, like I guess more moving into fascism, like pushing down the rebellion, you know, which we can also see in other leaders around the world of kind of pushing down the rebellion. I don't think we have to name any names to know who that is. Or who those people are. And the same with the Epstein files, you know, yes, they're coming out, but they're restricted. Like it's a flooding, but it's also like they're not coming out at the same time. There's definitely things that are being held back as well. So it's kind of this like, you know, there's always in astrology, there's different ways of interpreting it, and you can see it in all the ways how it manifests, you know, so... Yeah, I think you're right. And that kind of Neptune and Aries, like you said, some people are just like, I don't know, like, because I don't know who I am now. I don't know. It's that Aries is the self, you know, and it's like we've come from this dreamland of Neptune and Pisces, and, you know, and now it's quite a jarring process. I think on a personal level, like our dreams and our ideals will be like restricted, or Saturn will bring that reality to them, you know, and again, we have to keep going forward because that Aries energy is pushing us forward, but we have to go, okay, how can we make it into reality? How can we move forward after all the dreaming? And it might feel limiting at first. I think it might feel like hard work. I think Saturn and Aries is hard work, you know, like, okay, now we really have to action. And so on a personal level, I think, you know, I think Neptune also adds confusion to our dreams. You know, there's also this like idea of Neptune and Aries, you know, are we still idealizing this individualistic society? You know, like Aries is about the individual, and I don't know. I see all this Aries energy and the Saturn Neptune conjunction as part of a bigger picture of the Pluto and Aquarius. It's almost like this has to happen first, and then like there's that uprising, you know, of the Pluto and Aquarius gaining traction over the next 30 years. It's like we have to remember that we're part of this bigger picture of Pluto and Aquarius, which is the biggest cycle that we're in, you know, and I think.
Also, you go. I just want to talking about like while you're talking about this, like something come to me as well, like talking about the restructuring our own identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the last like maybe 2,000 years when we're in the age of Pisces, right? It's like a lot of like a guru, like like spirituality movement, new age movement, all that kind of stuff happening, right? But now it's kind of like a lot that kind of stuff collapsing. You can see it, you can feel it, and there's guru, because the guru is actually within us. Our self is our greatest teacher. It's not like kind of like, it's not encouraging individualism in that way. It's actually owning what is within us rather than like
that's true. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
You know what I mean? So I feel like when I see Aries and conjunct with Saturn in Aries, it's kind of like really restructuring who we are as an individual, how we be part of the whole rather than totally out. Because like in Pisces energy is like really, you know, you can also feel like the what's that called, the deception, right? Sometimes when you see Pisces, it's also associated with like deception and drugs and substances and all that kind of stuff, right? The alcohol, the illusion, the idealism, right? So I feel like now it's kind of like now starting to really drop into your personal level, like what is really true for us. And Saturn is kind of like assisting us to finding that structure. But this is like transitioning because it's in 0 degree, right? So it's like really beginning. And like you said, when I'm looking at your note and you was talking about there's nothing happened in the history like this in 0 degree, right?
So let's just talk about that actually, because that's massive. We haven't talked about that. So 0 degrees Aries, guys, is like the world, what is it called? The world start point or whatever. So it's like 0 degrees is the complete new beginning. It's such an important degree in astrology, and it's completely new, like fresh. And we've never had in recorded history a Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. Ever. We have had Saturn-Neptune conjunctions in other signs. And do you want me to talk about that briefly, what they were? So Neptune-Saturn conjunction, the last one, it's a 36-year cycle. So the last one was the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, which is just such an amazing depiction of, you know, the wall being Saturn constricting and then the fall of it, you know, Neptune like eroding that structure. Like it's amazing. We also had one in 1953 and 1917. Both of those years were quite important for Russia. So we had the Bolshevik revolution in Russia in 1917 and then the death of Stalin in 1953. So again, quite big moments for, I think, communist countries, Russian countries. I didn't look at China too much, but you might know more. But, you know, there's this like degrading or, the dissolving is what I'm trying to say of these structures. So I think we're not going to really know what this one holds because it's a very confusing time, especially because it's in the middle of eclipse season. But, you know, Neptune in Aries the last time was in 1861 to 1875, which was the Civil War in America. And Saturn in Aries last time was 1996, 1999. And so there's this kind of cycle of, eroding, people uprising. You know, the 90s was also Saturn in Aries, was a big period of self-definition, I think. There was big significant shifts in technology and an individualistic culture, like, you know, that pop culture of the 90s was very individualistic. So it's an interesting time, but we've never experienced Saturn and Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees Aries. I find that incredible.
Yes, and also because I feel like because when this conjunction is kind of like because Neptune is going like a much longer cycle than Saturn, right? So I feel like this carries kind of like Saturn carried the longer cycle in our humanity and to manifest in a more personal, a tangible way. So I feel like this story of humanity, it's totally another chapter of life. Because I feel like what we're witnessing now, and it's amazing to see, but also you never know what's going to happen. And for me, I definitely is a dissolving of, like you said, like what you just described and mentioned all the time, like when Saturn Neptune conjunction or they're in Aries, most of them is like dissolving the structures, right? So there's some kind of war, but not necessarily physical one, but of course it is. And it's like kind of like the old structure has to be dissolved, and with Neptune dissolving the boundary, so Saturn can really start to rebuild what is actually the system that works, right? And basically, time in that time, right? And yes, and then we can talking about the what's that called, the Neptune dissolving the structure, right? And also the Saturn starting to kind of like rebuild what the structures that actually works for all of us. I think I just repeating myself.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think this Saturn brings that. It can also bring restriction, and I think it can also try to impose limits on a crumbling society. So it can be positive, it can be positive in terms of like rebuilding, but it can also be like negative in terms of like imposing limits. And I think we're seeing that, like leaders trying to hold on to their power and like impose these limits on something that is crumbling. So it'll be really interesting to see which way it goes. And I'm sure it'll go many different ways in different parts of the world. Cool. Should we talk about the eclipse in Aquarius? Because I think this adds to the confusion, because eclipse season, unless you have anything else you want to say about the Saturn-Neptune.
Yeah, I think that's it. Let's talking about the eclipse. Just wait me a second. I'll see the chart first, because I do feel like there's something.
18th of February. So again, I think eclipses always bring change. Eclipses the eclipse is just before the Saturn conjunct Neptune. So it's happening just before, and I think a few days before.
Wait a minute. Hang on a minute. Because I feel like, when I'm looking at the charts, actually the Saturn enter Aries, right? 14th of Feb. And then that's actually starting to conjunct with Neptune. I think it's already starting. Like as the eclipse is built, as the eclipse happens, we're already feeling that conjunction. We're already feeling it now in some ways. But but it's happening like technically just before that the exact conjunction. So it's all happening at the same time. But I think pardon? Yeah, pretty much happening all the same time. Yeah.
So I think eclipses, like, I'm sure listeners know this, but eclipses always bring change. They're also a time of beginnings and endings. They're not a time where things are clear either, because eclipses, and this is a solar eclipse, so the sun is the light of the sun is being blocked. So it's a time where we are not sure. And again, the sun represents leaders, which I think is interesting. It represents our own vitality. So it's like, we're just not sure what's going on, in terms of, so I think this is also a time where things personally can be shifting a lot. This month is like, I'm not really sure where I'm going. And also in the world, you're like, I don't really know which way this is going to go. But the solar eclipse in Aquarius on the 18th of February, that's in New Zealand, is quite full on. It's in Aquarius, 28 degrees. So again, those end degrees, which makes it more potent. It's square Uranus, which is the ruler of the eclipse in Taurus, which adds to that kind of shockwave, that unexpectedness, we just don't really know how that's going to pan out. It's in Taurus, it's the Earth. It could be literally like earthquakes, shockwaves. But I think it's going to be more just unexpected events, which won't be quite clear how they're going to turn out. There is a nice supportive trine from Jupiter to Venus in Pisces. Which is nice, I think. It's supportive.
Because I feel like when you're talking about the Uranus in Taurus and squaring the exact, like the eclipse, right? And when I look at that one, I feel like, even though you never can predict Uranus, because it's really unpredictable, right?
You can't predict Uranus.
you cannot. But I just really feel like it's like a shocking kind of thing in finances in a lot of ways, like the finance market, that stuff. And because also, like I said, so the solar eclipse normally kind of like representing a beginning, but like I feel like it's really interesting to see, because that, like you said, because the sun is blocked, right, in that way. So there's like a period of dark time, and then you can see the sun again, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like really good metaphor for before something really big starting, there's a dark period of time, and we have to endure because there's nothing you can, nothing you can. Yeah. So I think that's the, I feel like, and also the Uranus coming in a very shocking way in that like dark time, and then things will be much more clear after that. Yeah. What are you
That
gonna
just
say?
reminds me, I was going to say, I finally watched Avatar 2 days ago.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and it's like that, right? They have the eclipse and they have the big fight and the battle and the fire, and then the sun comes out again. That's just what I was thinking. And everything becomes clearer, and they're like, oh, this is what's going on. But while you're in that eclipse mode, they're like fighting it out. Again, the Aries energy of fighting it out and not sure who's winning, not sure what's happening.
As well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting month.
And like another thing.
What do you think of the Venus? What do you think of the Venus? So the Venus will be conjunct the North Node around that time, and it's going to be trine Jupiter. Not
trine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the date for
that
the
is
Venus trine Jupiter.
I think that was
it's
before.
later on. I think it's later on in the month.
Yeah, Mercury is like trying Jupiter before in the exactly when Saturn get into Aries. I think that's still something I want. Like I mentioned a little bit before. Like I feel like that's quite important as well, and because I feel like I said, North Node is something we're heading, right? It's kind of like a turning point because Mercury representing our thinking, our collective like thought form in a lot of way, right? So I feel like when this conjunct North Node, it's kind of like the collective consciousness is like heading into where we're supposed to be, but it's not comfortable. And because the Pisces, there's like a lot of deception and the illusions like being reviewed. Like I said, the flooding of information is literally like this, but in a good way. I feel like it's starting to actually really pushing people the way of thinking to developing compassion rather than just really like really in that deception. Something, for example, when we're looking at all the information being shown in online, sometimes some information just really disgusting, and some information when we're really seeing it, it's like, oh my god, this is happening in humanity, right? And
I think that's what I feel like that's the silver lining of this month, even though it's not an easy silver lining, is those Pisces planets and Venus and Mercury trining Jupiter and Cancer do bring that compassion. They do bring that humanity back, which I think later on, like especially in April when we have all the planets in Aries, it's actually insane. We'll have to talk about that. But I think using that humanity now and feeling, we're going to have to feel the feelings. We're going to have to,
it's kind of like not just feeling in a personal level and also collective level as well. So it cannot just being, okay, this is my life, it's nothing to do with me, I just like choosing to ignore it. Now you cannot because is talking about it. And I think because Mercury is also kind of like adding on that, okay, we need to talking about it, we need to discuss, we need to actually speaking up, right? So I feel like that's actually helping, pushing us to actually developing more compassion. Of course, there's like more people maybe not choosing that way because they're so numbed, right? But because that's like a way, like when collectively we're all pushing in that way, exactly like I said, I think it's more supportive rather than like, like really not good in that way. So I feel like especially when this eclipse also having the Venus conjunct North Node and trying the white trine with Jupiter, I feel like it's harmonizing a lot of information we're already getting from that Saturn getting to Aries, and also at the same time the Mercury conjunct North Node. It's kind of like bring more harmonized energy into what we have been feeling, right? Because we have to allow ourselves to feel what is happening in our personal life and also collectively in order to really like evoke that humanity already within us, that pure essence of who we are. And then we can actually starting this new chapter of humanity and the evolution to a new, like really big new beginning, right?
And I think, I think it's not going to, like I said, it's not going to be easy because Neptune in Pisces is in detriment. So that means that Neptune's not comfortable in Pisces. But I also sometimes think with the dignities of the planets, like, yes, Neptune's not comfortable in Pisces because we're such a rational...
Aries, you mean, right? Neptune not comfortable in Aries.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking about Mercury. Mercury's not... Mercury's... There it is. Yeah, Mercury's not happy in Pisces because the rational brain goes offline,
Yeah.
But, and that's seen in our society as a detriment. But I actually think we're going to have to let go and feel more because they're rational. Again, this adds to the confusion, but we're going to have to feel more and we're going to have to, maybe lean towards the arts and our expression through music or our connection through music or dance or art or all these other human things that we've lost on some level, connecting back to that, So I think that's the silver lining, and that's what I would like to, on a personal note, just leave our viewers with as well, because people are feeling it. This is very real. We are connected, and the Pisces and Jupiter energy is going to really expand that kind of feeling of we're connected, which is going to be hard because there's a lot happening in the world that's hard to watch, that's hard to see, and it's very hard to feel.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that this is part of being human, but also to look after ourselves, that compassion back towards ourselves and to come back to ourselves and to our families and to our connections and our, whatever that is for people. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also, another thing I noticed as well, like, I'm not sure, I'm looking at Lilith again, and it's also in Scorpio again. I'm not sure why.
Your Lilith is in Scorpio. My Lilith is in Sagittarius. We still haven't got to the bottom of that.
It's happening again. But in my chart, it's in Scorpio again, and now this time it's in the 12th house, which is the hidden, with the spiritual side of things. I feel like there's, and also when you're looking at the Lilith is in my chart, of course. We're going to talking about that later. So the Lilith is in 12th house, and also the Chiron, and they pretty much in same degree, but it's in Aries, right? So I feel like definitely there's still a like massive, especially when you're looking at I still don't know what the fire name's called. the spiritual guru will be revealing, right? So I feel like that's massive, like masculine healing, right? And there's a lot of people being exposed in that fire, as most people are men, right? Who is wounded and taking the power and the money. And also I feel like there's like a lot of like a hidden like feminine energy, the kind of like revengeful energy in our hidden subconscious. Collectively, I think that's kind of like a little, even though at the moment I didn't see any connection between like Lilith in the Scorpio and connecting with that Chiron, but I feel like that's kind of like a preparation of like a massive, like a surging of like femininity. What is like I said, even before we're talking in my personal experiences, like the patriarchy kind of like experiences reflecting in the culture, and like women was so in a low position. And even though they might more capable, they might having more wisdom, like can deal with life in a much more like not better way, just like they're more capable than they deserve, like the respect, you know what I mean? But this kind of like for me in this eclipse happening in that way, it's like, yes, there's something in the background is still brewing, is still like coming out, but not actually having the direct link just yet.
Yeah. I think it's interesting with the masculine, the wounding and what you just said. I mean, we can definitely see that in the Epstein files coming out, the very ugly side of the patriarchy there. But then also like things like, I haven't watched it, but the series Heated Rivalry, have you heard of it? I don't know. It's about two gay hockey players, I think. I haven't watched it, but it's like causing a huge stir on the internet, and it's very much about positive, that kind of positive masculine energy. Again, I haven't watched it, but that there's both going on. It's creating debate around, you know, what it means to be a man. I guess, you know, being a masculinity is probably not the right word to use, because we both have feminine and masculine energies within us. No matter what gender, whether you're, you know, female, male or trans or whatever, we all have these energies in us. But there is definitely that wounding in all of us of that masculine, what that looks like in a more healthy way. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I want to talking about. Is definitely a lot Pisces and a lot Aries and Aquarius as well, you know. So there's like a lot energy like going on at the same time, but different way of dealing with it, and they all add on like different energy in our collective consciousness and how they play out in our like even daily life, you know. So shall we move on for next one?
What have you got for the next one? I'm at the end of my notes, actually.
Yes. I think there's something I remember you want talking about. We're already talking about the eclipse, and the Mercury retrograde is in end of the month, isn't it? Yeah, because I remember you were talking about the Mercury retrograde is like longer in Pisces. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not longer. It's like still the 3 weeks, like it always is. It's just Mercury's in Pisces for 10 weeks because of that retrograde. So it's in there for a long time. And I think we've kind of looked at that. I actually think we've covered a lot.
Definitely. And
it's unusual for us to finish before our scheduled time, but
which is good, which means like we're kind of like a really efficient of like what we were talking about.
We're efficient as we're feeling the fire and air energy already.
Yeah, definitely. And so what do you have want to wrapping up for this? How are you preparing for this?
How am I preparing for it? Like I said, I think for me, I've got a really big month. Like Aries is in my 10th house. It is in your 10th house too, because we have similar charts. And I'm feeling I'm really busy in my career. Like I've got lots happening. I'm also aware that I'm not getting attached to the outcomes, because I know things will shift and change. And I'm pushing forward, but also leaving room for adjustment. I'm actually quite happy that Mercury's in Pisces at the end of the month for me. Again, Pisces is in my 10th house, in my midheaven. So again, career point, because I know like I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do all these things. There's some new things that I'm putting out there. I've got a new astrology workshop. I'll put the link in below. But I'm going to push forward, and it's all kind of trialing things. And then I know when Mercury goes into Pisces, I'm going to have to review and be like, well, how did that work for me? You know, and how did that? So that's how I'm using the energy, and definitely looking after myself as I go, because again, that's just for 2026, that air and fire energy can cause, you know, burnout. Doing my what works for me, my kind of practices that help ground me, and for me one of those is water, which is interesting with the Pisces energy. So spend a lot of time in the water, swimming, you know, and just taking those times out. So that's how I'm using the energy personally in my chart.
That's good, because I feel like I'm a little bit opposite than you, because I was the same thing, because we all both are Cancer rising, right? So I felt like I'm more in a pause in a way, like more final shedding. So I'm not like pushing a lot of things forward. I'm not like, even I feel before I came here, I was trying to planning a lot of things, right? And then I feel like actually I'm not trying to planning a lot of things, because I feel like energy is still not clear. The energy is still not like really ready for anything I want to pushing forward. So I'm just like, I was trying to kind of like stay present and really clear what it is in my field, right? And I feel like it's kind of also like a final healing and shedding. And also, like I said, I think when I tried yesterday, I had a like energy of like, yes, the fire horse energy is really fast and speedy, right? But also I think this is kind of like before the last week, basically, before the Chinese New Year, like the fire horse really like crossing the threshold, right? And it's kind of like asking you to learn how to like really holding that speed, because it can be when the energy is shifted and it can be go really, really fast, right? So that's why I feel like now I'm kind of like really trying to holding my horse, saying, hey, don't try to push a lot of things forward because I'm in the other side of the world and I cannot pushing anything anyway. So it's like, let's just really go back to what is within myself. And also like I said before in the very beginning, like the experience in here is basically I have confronting the older version of myself and existing in other people's eyes. They still, but like when we have a conversation, meeting up with a friend, they still think and thought you're the older version of yourself. So I have to presenting myself as a new version of me, and without like drag myself to the older version of myself, like to meet their expectation, right? So that's for me, it's kind of like I starting to reclaiming who I am right now and letting go of the old version of myself, and that existing in my parents' eyes, in my friends' eyes, and and really trying to find that like acceptance between both parties, because there's a lot change like after last 7 years, right? So I think that's kind of like a massive thing for me. But for me, I do feel like the movement starting to moving forward, you know. So I think that's the thing I want to talk about.
Cool.
Right.
Well, it'll be interesting in our next podcast to see where we're at.
And also I just want to talking about like my parents keep walking past, and this like another thing like I hate the most, even though you tell them like, you know, I'm doing this, and they still keep passing by. I was like, what the heck is going on with this? They're just like, there's no privacy in a lot of sense. Just get in.
Oh, it was lovely to talk to you. And looking forward to seeing where we're at next month, and keep an eye out for our next podcast.
All right. Okay. Let's just keep in touch, and okay, see you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us on Let's Blame the Planets. We'll be back next month with another deep dive into the sky and how it's showing up in our lives. If you want to keep up with what else we're offering, from astrology insights to workshops and more, check out our social handles in the description below. And don't forget to follow so you don't miss the next episode.